One of them wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio. What's your name, sir?
Stephen O'Donnell.
And what's the name of your company?
McCoy Solutions.
What does McCoy Solutions do?
We provide solutions in a consulting capacity to clients from special operations skill sets from military and law enforcement.
Logistics?
We can provide logistics.
So describe special operations for my nieces and nephews that don't know anything about that stuff.
Okay. So your tier 1, tier 2 entities that would exist in the military, and then also SWAT teams, HRT teams, organizations or entities within organizations that are along those lines.
Okay. And what are some of the vertical markets you guys work in? Like, you provide services for a police department, a corporation, or what are some of those companies you work with?
Well, we're actually formulating new strategies and reaching out as far as verticals. Public safety is a big one that we're reaching out to in a massive capacity. From medical training to UAS systems, which are unmanned aerial aircraft or unmanned aerial systems. The private sector, we're big into the private sector. We provide services. So I could expand upon that as we discuss.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's talk about the medical stuff. I just got back from Seattle, a company called Remote Medical International. They came from private sector, mountaineering, spearlunking, all that kind of stuff. And they go out with teams,
right,
with corporations, and they sustain medical treatment until real help arrives, so to speak, right? Keep everybody alive. Their people came from military, a lot of them, by the way,
right,
to have that ability. Now, you're coming from the military sector, though. So that's going to be a whole different skill set, really, right?
Correct.
So describe what you might do for so Disney wants to put you in theater in Nepal or something. What are you going to provide for them?
Well, the combat trauma care that comes with from specialized units or medics that are in specialized units, medical personnel, Green Berets, their 18 Deltas are combat trauma medics. So that all the lessons learned that we bring to the table from 15 years in Iraq and Afghanistan in combat zones, and then all other mission theaters all over the world, we bring the highest level of knowledge and training to the table.
That's where technology comes from.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it really is a culmination of all the lessons learned from different skill sets in both the military and the law enforcement.
So would you go in and train by the way, we're in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yes, we are.
at the Sheraton Uptown, not the downtown,
Yeah.
the Sheraton Uptown. So, city of Albuquerque, what might you be able to provide for them if they wanted to use your services? In that sense?
Well, let's talk about public safety. We could offer augmentation to search and rescue through the actual unmanned systems, and also canine on the ground, between technology that is actually on the harness on the dog and also the aircraft. We can identify where individuals are in a quadrant of search. Different payloads on the aircraft can identify, through thermal imaging, can identify individuals if they're lost or hurt or off the beaten path. And then we can also detect, if anybody's got a cell phone in a certain area, we can detect the cell phone signal.
All right, so
zeroing in on basically where the person is to try and provide them help. And this gets launched, when things go into an Amber Alert status and so on and so forth.
Right. So I find this fascinating because I had my first computer in '84. It's 2 floppy drives, right?
Right.
And I've always, my nickname was Inspector Gadget at the police department because I had a flip phone, I had a brick, I had a pager. I had the first beeper, they called it, right, back in the day. For the PD. What the hell's that, Harold? It's called a beeper. What does it do? Well, it sends a phone number to. Well, we don't want that. And then the whole department got one 6 months later, right? So what's interesting is the public sector people, this is not as true as it used to be, but I think you'll agree with me, it's still true. There's a lag. There's a gap. So the guy that's the captain that's 50 years old, never really had a computer. Yeah, he's got a cell phone now because he's got to have one. But that technology didn't come of age when they were of the point to grab it, like our kids might grab it now, right? That's right. But the military, it's mission critical. It's you die if you don't know how to operate this stuff. So do you find that there's a gap? Do you bring this higher knowledge? Maybe you're the same demographic. Maybe you're close to the same age as some of these administrators in municipalities, but they never had the experience. And so are you able to bring that higher technology to them on an outsourcing basis? Because I think it's brilliant. I could go down a Radio Shack and buy a drone, but I wouldn't know what the hell to do with it. I'd crash it, right?
Understood. The unique situation, because this technology, let's talk the UAS technology. Everybody's talking about drones. Obviously, when right after 9/11, drones were huge, coming out in the news as far as the utilization of unmanned aircraft in missions for combat-related stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now, when I was a kid growing up, you have a remote control car, you have a remote control little helicopter or this or that.
I had a string.
Right. Well, okay.
Literally, Cox airplanes and Cox cars, strings.
Okay.
So that's how low tech we were.
Understood. But I mean, that's effectively what they are. But now, because people are putting GoPro cameras on them, or they're putting stuff on them, or whatever the case may be, and the technology in the private in that's out there for the public, any Joe that wants to go into Radio Shack and buy one, or they're even selling them in the gas stations.
I know, it's amazing. I saw one on the road. Yeah.
Right. So the point is that anybody can go get one. The problem is that the technology, the distance from the control box to the actual device that you're manipulating in airspace is huge. So FAA is concerned that people are going to start using these.
Oh, yeah.
Saturate the area, and people are going to start using these, and then it's going to interfere with commercial flights and so on, flight patterns and so on and so forth.
It's going to look like a Jetsons cartoon or something. Stuff flying all over the place. Yeah.
Correct. So they've come down and identified test sites for the actual public sector or private sector, and then also commercial use of UAS systems. I think there's 5 in the United States, and you have to apply if you're going to use it in a commercial capacity, whether it be for public safety or private sector or commercial use. You have to abide by these regulations, register to get these, qualify for these laws or these certificates and so on and so forth, certifications, and then you can go ahead and use it in the market space.
And that's a lot of logistics for an average operation, a business, average municipality. It's compliance, and you're handling all that for it. So there's a huge value in that.
So let me put it in perspective.
Closer. Make sure you stay a little closer.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me put it in a little perspective for you. LA County sheriffs in LA, the city of LA, city of Los Angeles, they've got probably the biggest in law enforcement, the biggest aviation program in the United States.
That makes the largest sheriff's department in the world, I think.
Right.
Makes sense,
so at any time, let's say they have 3 helicopters up, okay? And these are just hypothetical numbers. Let's say that an hour of flight time is $500 for one helicopter. That's $1,500 every hour.
Right.
They've got at least 3 up every 24 hours. You see how this is multiplied.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? So what we could do is we could augment that in, let's say the UAS system is $2,000. The training provided is, X, Y, and Z as far as in classroom, and then you have to have so many flight hours in order to operate the device. But that right there helps augment the capabilities of the aviation program for LA County and the city of Los Angeles.
How new is this business model? It seems fairly new to me. The thing is, like, it's just getting off the ground. I mean, it's been around a while, but I mean, your business model has been around how long for this?
Oh, well, I mean, McCoy's been in business for just over 2 years, but I formulated McCoy and came up with the organization because I've spent so many years working contracts for 800-pound gorillas in the contracting world, and what I mean by that is the companies that are out there that have all the clout that have their infrastructure is just immense, like the Boeings, the Raytheons, and so on and so forth. They don't like that term, by the way. But I mean, that's effectively what they are.
Yeah.
small organizations, I find myself in a position where I wasn't going to go chase any more contracts. I needed to hang my hat here in Albuquerque for my son, so that's why I started the organization. Providing the ability to, the guys and gals that are at the table with me and in McCoy, they get to work from home until they have to be in front of a client to provide a service. So the overhead's nothing.
So this idea about we're going to call it a drone instead of the acronym, so people can get it. It's a drone, but it's, you know what I'm saying. It's a high-end.
I mean,
there's different levels. There's the Radio Shack thing. There's the Cox Airplane thing, and then you're talking about some high-end
correct
things that are. They're not going to be military, but they're paramilitary. I mean, they're pretty as high as you can go without being military, right?
Well, okay, so we're being recorded right now on a GoPro.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a public version of something else that was, built for law enforcement.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh,
comms
interesting.
or military.
Okay.
So that's just a civilianized version of it.
Right.
Yeah. So and the same thing happens with other technologies. So like the drones, the UAS systems. It's
Are a lot of municipalities catching on to this model because budgets are stretched. We talked about this at breakfast.
Right.
We had breakfast, right?
Correct.
Budgets are out of control. Nobody's spending any money on anything. In a time when we should spend the most, frankly, right? When it's quiet and we can think and plan, right? Are you finding that this is attractive? Is it a no-brainer as far as a sale? Or if there is not a sale, what's the resistance from a municipality, let's say? I've always thought it's because, we're the cops and we're public sector and we can't really partnership with private sector because, that's like if someone wanted to give a donation to the police department back in the day. You could think it's collusion. You could think it's bribery. You could think it's influence, Mm-hmm. But contracting to somebody like you doesn't seem you'd have those kind of issues. Do you have command and control concerns from them? I mean, is the sheriff helicopter pilot telling your guys what to do? Because that's co-employment, right? You can look at all those things come into play, I could see.
Understood, but it's more along the lines of when a helicopter's on station, it's providing support to a ground unit.
Right.
Now what we've done is it's not that we're trying to take away the ability for that helicopter to be on site, but we're augmenting a capability to the actual ground unit for them to be self-sufficient instead of having to wait for air support.
Because there's a lag time and a gap. That's
exactly,
right.
because it depending on how. I mean, I don't even know how big LA County and the city of Los Angeles is, but that's a lot of.
Oh, it's huge. It's it's hundreds of thousands of square miles. It's unbelievable.
There you go. So, and there's more people in that area than they have helicopters to as far as what they can help support.
So, how long would one of these drones be able to fly? Could you run one 24/7 in theory if this one's landing, one's taking off, and you could have continuous coverage and?
Well, you could, but what it boils down, it's effectively the situation dictates when you use it.
Well, I'm just thinking, I'm almost thinking it could augment patrol. It's for support for patrol, but in theory, it could be a patrol vehicle itself looking for roof burglaries, fires, things like that.
Well, yes, and we have different ways. You want to talk about fires? The state of California has fire season because of the drought and everything else. So we could one of the ways we could help is train these fire crews that are on standby, waiting for a spark to happen. Somebody forgets to put out a campfire or whatever the case may be. We could teach them how to use these so that they could do search patterns and identify where there's a hot spot before it gets out of control.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right?
Based on the payload that is on. And when I'm talking about payloads, the platform is the vehicle. The payload is what sensors and GoPro cameras or whatever that we have actually on the aircraft.
Right.
So
do you find any challenge in training? The municipality, the firefighter, the police officer,
the
dispatch, whatever.
The challenge is identifying which entity wants the training. We can provide the training. That's not the problem.
No, I know you can.
We have the training programs.
But is it receptive? In other words, if you got a person that, like my buddy Paul, who just retired, works at the DA's office, he barely can use a smartphone. Doesn't want to use a smartphone, by the way. And he's my age, right?
Understood.
He's a smart guy, by the way.
Right.
But I think there'd be like an internal resistance to technology to him because that's where he is in his life. Are you finding any challenges in training the personnel? Can they absorb it quickly and easily?
Those bridges have yet to be crossed.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we've got the vertical, we've got the business, the methodology, the model, the business model, the development model, reaching out to the actual. we're molding things on how we want to approach.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to, the blanket statement is let's approach public safety and try and assist them in all capacities. But having the ability to sit down with representatives from different departments, municipalities, state entities, whatever the case may be, that bridge has yet to be crossed.
We had Sheriff O'Donnell on our show.
Sheriff O'Donnell?
From LA County, right? Before he got elected.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a...
I don't believe we're related.
Well, I hope not. We'd have to disclose it on the show. But he's a big proponent of this kind of stuff.
Understood.
And he was a Long Beach PD, and then he took over the biggest organization in the world for that kind of thing. So I can see people wanting to do it. I think the resistance is, like I just discussed, going back to when I was a cop, public-private partnerships. Oh, it's new. What do we do about it?
So we can empower them by actually providing the product to them, giving them the widget, the actual aircraft, and then providing the training, and then it's hands off.
Well, that's a good way.
We don't have to actually get into now. When I say hands off, it's hands off until they have to get maybe recertified.
Right.
Annual certifications, requirements, training requirements, so on and so forth. We're also trying this is a multifaceted topic. So
you talked about some medical technology for these medical dummies. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, but let's if you don't mind, I
want
to continue down this road with
okay,
UAS.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so what we get is it's not just McCoy. We have other companies that are in this venture with us. So it's getting all those moving pieces to a certain milestone when we're ready to launch. And here's here's where we go on how we approach this. You mentioned, you have identified I'm from the military. I've got, almost 14 years, 5 tours, so on and so forth. Okay. We bring to the table subject matter experts from law enforcement that bridge the gap from military jargon or military speak to the public safety sector. Cops talk like cops.
That's true.
Military guys talk like military guys. So there are a ton of similarities, but in order to bridge the gap, we, especially in the lingo, the language, we have the SMEs that come from that industry that have done the jobs that the people that we would be getting in front of have done the job. The cohesion is there.
Yeah, when I was a cop, we had the best thing to be a cop that was an ex-military guy. He's got both languages. He gets it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when I was a cop, I was trained by primarily Vietnam vets. Were all my FTOs. Almost
Understood.
all of them. Completely different sort of a police officer in person.
Right.
Really different.
Right.
And I was very grateful that I was in that little window there where I came in the 80s. They'd been cops, after Vietnam, and it was very interesting.
Yes.
So there's a definite language needs to be spoken to open up the mind. Because if you can't open up their brain, it doesn't matter what you say.
Well, and you say, that some people that may be your age that are in the administrative roles, the high-end administrative roles, may be hesitant on this technology and so on and so forth.
Right.
But their subordinates are people that are my age or younger who have, grown up with the Atari systems, the Xboxes, the dual analog keyboard, key control.
Yeah, and they're asking for the technology. They're asking their leaders
They
for it.
understand how to manipulate and utilize that technology instantaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about the military, the medical military vertical. Tell me about this very expensive, really cool bleeding medical dummy.
Well, okay, so the medical dummy belongs to another organization that McCoy is working with.
Yeah.
We bridge the gap to that manufacturer through a company called Mars they were in Minnesota and Seattle. Randy Curley is in Seattle. He's our director for the medical division, and then I've got Jim Bolin is his number 2 in that. And what we've decided is that.
And what does Mars do exactly? Medical
training.
Any field support, like going along with a company CEO or something like that, or is it just the training part?
No, we could. Both organizations effectively will boutique the services to whatever the client requirements are.
But training's their big thing, Mars.
Right, yes,
Yeah, right.
yes. So we bring this to the table. The medical dummies, the medical mannequins, the technology has advanced so much. I remember, getting lifeguard certified as a young kid. The pushing the compressions for the CPR and stuff like that. Well, they've come so far since then. Now you've got a mannequin that has the ability to have an arterial bleed, and you have to apply a tourniquet properly in order to stop that.
Wow. So
the training is the same. TCCC is the tactical combat critical care. Okay. And I'm maybe screwing up all these acronyms as I'm explaining them, but
we don't let facts get in the way on security guards. Don't worry about it.
But so the private sector or public safety sector has moved away from the word tactical, and where they are is enhanced critical care. So what we're trying to do is, Officer Smith and Officer Johnson have no idea what they're showing up on a domestic disturbance. But when they get there, the one person is bleeding out from the arm because of a knife cut or something like that. We're trying to get into positions where we can provide the first responders, because the law enforcement officers are the first on the scene waiting for EMS, or they haven't even called EMS.
Exactly,
yet.
right.
And then it takes how long for EMS to get there. And if you got a massive arterial bleed out of your arm or your leg, you can bleed out in minutes.
That's an interesting model. So I like the way you say it's moving from tactical, because in the day, our tactics were cops show up, there's something going on.
Yeah.
Fire, paramedics aren't coming into the scene
if
it's not secure.
Right.
And we're not focusing on their medical treatment. We're focusing on securing the scene. And then, like you say, if you don't treat it right away, there's some new training I learned from another show. The golden something or other, first 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. If I can get you in the first 10 minutes,
yes,
no matter how bad you are, I probably can save you. But the technology is
it's ultimately just it's taking the subject and making sure that they don't get any worse until EMS can get on station.
But in school shootings, they're teaching now for firemen. Let's say you got a school and there's 5 buildings, and the cops come in and here's a bunch of dead bodies in the cafeteria, and the fire department in the old days would never go near that until the whole scene was secure.
Right.
Now they're doing what you say. It is a tactical response, but it's a better way to say it. They're going to move into the first zone if it's cleared.
Right.
And if they can get to those people soon and treat them.
Right.
Because the cops are going to be busy trying to get the bad guy, usually. Right.
Right.
In some cases, like domestic violence, okay, let's everybody calm down.
Well, they want to mitigate the situation.
Got to mitigate it, right.
Right.
So I think that's a brilliant idea that they're getting, and they're teaching, like my friend is a reserve at LAPD. For shooters, you're not waiting for SWAT to show up and put up a command post, which takes 3 hours, all right?
Right.
You're going in. If you can interrupt target acquisition, interrupt the guy's thoughts, there's a good chance it might work. Now, it didn't work too good in the abortion clinic thing, but I think it did work, because if he stayed there, it probably would have been worse. More people probably would have got shot, see? Unfortunately, the police officers got killed, but, that's what we do.
There's a lot of mitigating factors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of atmospheric factors that change things. Had the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, where that guy went in and started shooting everybody up, my biggest thing is that organizations, companies, whatever the case may be, they should be in a proactive security stance, meaning
they're
not
proactive.
Right.
They're responsive.
Right.
They wait for it to happen, and then they do response training.
Yeah. We just had a massive incident. 18 people shot, X number of them died, whatever, in our movie theater. Now we're going to have a roving patrol to make sure that nobody props up exit doors. Why not do that ahead of time?
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you why. In my world, operating security companies, the first driver's cost, right? Unfortunately.
Okay, fair enough. But
unfortunately.
This is where we get into this. If they want to be proactive, all they have to do
it's cheaper to be proactive.
It is cheaper to be proactive, because we're also in the day and age where, liability and liability goes through the roof. It's your fault. Everybody points the finger at somebody else as to why this happened. I mean, Look at Ferguson. 300-pound kid beating the hell out of I think he was 5'6", maybe the cop was 5'6" or whatever. But he was outweighed by at least 100 pounds. If your son wasn't doing wrong things, he wouldn't have been in that situation.
Right.
But yet the family wants to point the finger at the law enforcement entity. It's everybody else's fault. Nobody takes responsibility for this.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So what I'm getting at is looking at companies across the board, private companies. You want to stop going to the table and paying out huge claims and insurance and so on and so forth. Reach out to consulting firms like my organization or other organizations that are out there, and reach out to them and be proactive in trying to provide solutions or come up with solutions so that you don't get caught with your proverbial pants down. So to speak.
And the quote, you heard it a million times. It didn't happen here, so it's not going to happen here. It happens over there. And I think with San Bernardino, that tipped people's brains. I don't know why it was San Bernardino that tipped their brain, because it could have been a dozen other shootings,
because
right?
everybody thinks of California as it's calm, it's quiet, and everybody should be
Oh,
able
but
to enjoy the warmth and the sunshine.
No, but we've had our share of public shootings.
Understood.
Remember San Diego, like in the early '80s at
With the
McDonald's?
tank?
No,
Well,
guy
the
at
tank
McDonald's.
too,
In the tank. Yeah. So something tipped the psyche, which is good, and now people are starting to think, well, you know what, I got to spend the money on that. But it's not necessarily spending money. I think if you build your model, and you'll appreciate this as a consultant because you have models that work, right?
Yes.
So if I go to solve for active shooter, that's my. In other words, I'm surrounded by a bunch of probationers who are all active shooters, and they're all living in that apartment across the street here, outside the window here, and that's my highest concern because there's a high probability they're going to come to me and shoot me, right?
Right.
If I'm solving that, I have to solve not based on finances. I have to first solve on the logistics, the strategy, then the tactics.
Yes.
And then I make a budget for it. And if I do it that way, I can manipulate my budget. Mm-hmm. I can say, okay, listen, I need a subject matter expert on this in-house. Shit, we can't afford it. We don't have one. What am I going to do? Consultancy, outsourcing, retainer, maybe a volunteer. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Right, but
find the money to pay for it. But what people do is they base their plan on the money. They say, I have $100,000. I'll spend this much here and here, an amount of money. That's not a plan.
No,
and it's not a strategy.
No, it's not. And this is what the consultant agency provides, that is, and how it mitigates the problem for these companies. I don't want to have a 24-hour guy that I'm paying Social Security on or Medicare,
and you might not even need it.
And insurances and so on and so forth. And I don't need him to be there 24/7. 365 days a year to be a 24-hour employee. I don't need him to do that.
Right.
As a consultant, you can bring us in when you want us. The cost is lower. You're not sustaining us for, on full-time employment. But what we do is we come in and provide an assessment. And then when that assessment's done, we provide you the package. The package is, these are the recommendations that we make for changing the situation that you currently have existing. Here's how you can make yourself a more hard target.
Yeah. And
toughen up your security protocols and your posture, and then hopefully bad things don't happen.
Well, I mean, I ran 2 guard companies for 10 years, and then I ran guards at Disney and Fox. I know guards.
Right.
And, I have a radio show because probably nobody wants to hire me for a guard company anymore, right? Because I think it's a big waste of money, and I think it's a big scam for the most part, right? Now, when I say that, I don't mean that from a all-American capitalistic approach, because I'm a capitalist, right?
Right.
And the American Industrial Society model is a business. And I make money because I have X number of guards and X number of man hours that I bill you as the client for.
Right.
Right? And my message to you is that is security. A guard with a pencil and a paper and access control list is going to prevent
it's a
theft,
deterrent.
shooters. I'm not even sure it's a deterrent anymore. I think people are far more sophisticated.
It used to be.
If it's not set up right, it's not a deterrent. It's not a delay. It's not what's the 3 Ds? Deter, delay, deny, and there's one other.
Yep.
Anyway, it doesn't always work that way. Why? Because I have high turnover in the guard business. A big company can have 300% turnover in a year.
Yes.
And I got to train the same different guy 3 times, right? So I think we have to move away from that and start moving into what you're talking about. It has to be somebody that understands logistics. And people running operations at guard companies, their operational model is, if you're really good at scheduling and you're really good at retention and hiring, you can have a great man-hour business model and get billable hours way up and make some money. But again, the markup's small. I'm here to tell you it doesn't work. That's not going to stop anybody that wants to come in and shoot your place up. It's not going to happen. Or stuff that you're providing are not only proactive solutions, but they're ongoing. In other words, we're solving now. So here's 3 things I say about security. And write this down because I'm going to patent this or I'm going to copyright it or something, right? So all security is personal, all security is local, and all security is now, right? Listen, you could kick a lot of people's asses if they came in here, and I feel pretty safe, all right? But at the end of the day, I got to get my ass out that door myself, and I got to protect myself, right? So you can protect me to some degree. Ultimately, the responsibility we were just talking about comes down to me, my personal safety. So I have to feel safe. It's local because really, I don't know what's going on in that mountain up there.
Right.
But I can do something about what's going on in this room.
Right.
And then it's now because what happens is people say, well, it's not good. I know there's a shooting in San Bernardino, but that was last week. And right now in front of me, I got a weird guy, but I'm not going to do anything with the weird guy. I'm going to wait till next week to talk to him, and next week he comes up with a gun. So it's got to be now. And they don't build these models on that. They build it on man hours, barricades, hard targeting. And if you think about it those 3 ways, what if everybody and anybody in any active shooter situation had our training? Well, let's say yours is higher. Let's say they all had your training. How many fatalities would there be?
Minimal.
Maybe none. Maybe. I mean, depend because these guys aren't.
Well, Murphy always messes with you, but
something happens, but it's going to be like almost non-existent, right? So that's what I mean by personal. So
understood.
What do you think about that model?
I think it's a great model.
You can use it if you want, by the way.
Thank you very much. I want to ultimately expand on that as well, though. So, we've been talking about physical security. We've been talking about the implementation or the augmentation of drones or UAS systems into existing protocols, security protocols. We work with another organization in business development ventures that is the tier 1, tier 2 cybersecurity. And we have a program, you want to talk about tower markets. We have a program and basically a product that we can provide in commercial capacity and also in private sector capacity, with just 2 different names. And one's and for private sector, for individuals, it's a kind of a downgraded version.
Oh, right.
It's for the individual, and somebody wants to protect their family, whatever the case may be, so on and so forth. So, but we can provide that, and it's the culmination of cyber and physical security assessment done at the same time, the 2 teams interacting and providing the assessment to the client. No other organization out there is doing it in that capacity at the moment.
Give me an application. I'm
Port of Houston.
Okay. What are you doing for them with that?
No, we could. I'm not saying we
are.
Okay. But we could. We could go in. McCoy provides the physical assessment we provide the manpower to the physical side of the security assessment, okay? And then the other organization comes in and provides all the cybersecurity,
right?
And we merge it together. So Port of Houston is huge, massive port, okay? I think when you talk about exports going offshore from the boats, I think Houston's above 60% of all.
It's got to be one of the biggest ones. Yeah.
Yeah, going out of America to other places across the world. We can bring in the guys that can sit on the docks and do, the camera assessments as far as what's the line of sight, where are the dead spots, so on and so forth. We can bring the guys that can check the entry points, that can check the fencing, the deterrence all across, around the entire port. We also bring the guys that can come in and do underwater assessments.
Oh, that's cool.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a port.
Yeah.
What's a major way of what's one of the biggest ways to enter the port? You go across the water.
Oh, there was
come in under the water.
I got a briefing, 15 years ago that Al Qaeda was training scuba divers, and we haven't heard about
Which
it
I think
yet.
is kind of an oxymoron when you've got those types of insurgents, and now they're into waterborne operations, and they come from the desert. That's kind of funny. So, but my point is that we can provide all that at the same time.
All right. So here's the gap I get with the cyber thing. So I think cyber is the most important. I mean, bombs and bullets are not good. Absent a nuclear bomb, there's going to be damage. It's going to be bad. People are going to die with bombs and bullets because that's basically what they're about.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get an atomic bomb, but maybe not. But if they took the grid down, A lot of people in this country are going to die.
So you're bringing in infrastructure.
A lot of people are going to die.
You're bringing infrastructure.
It's a major problem. I don't think we pay enough attention to it.
I agree with you 100%. Now there are.
So how could you help them with the private sector to be above some standards and be a little bit ahead of watching that kind of stuff?
Entities that exist out there that are running programs, existing programs. See, here's the biggest thing with what's going on right now. The 3-letter agencies, they don't ever seem to have enough manpower.
That's true.
To get it all done.
Yeah.
Okay. When you take.
And it's a volume issue, by the way. They tell me, the experts tell me, listen, Chuck, I got super smart guys. They're the best in the business. But when you have 1 billion hacks on your network a year, you have a response time that lags. You can only get to number 500 million so fast before you get to 1 billion. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the challenge, right? But on the other hand, you're right. There is also kind of like, I don't have enough bodies to do this. You know?
Right, and I'm not. That's not a knock on the.
Oh no, I know, understand. Yeah.
I mean, they're limited by manpower. They're limited by budgeting. They're limited in capacity across the board. You know, their hands are effectively tied. Not that they want their hands tied, not that they are purposely having their hands tied, but I mean, it's just the way the situation exists.
This is why I say all security is personal, because the government, to your point, can only do
so much,
and then private has to step in and say, "Listen, thanks for that, and I'm going to take it one more step here locally and try and fix it." Yeah.
Well, so what we could do is we could provide teams that could go, to different parts of the country and actually get assessments done. Using the agency's model, we could effectively extend their reach.
Oh, using their own internal standards.
Yes,
that makes sense. Right. Yeah.
If they have a standard of X, Y, and Z, and that's the way they need to handle the assessment for an infrastructure type of an assessment,
right,
for threat analysis, then we could do the same. We could bring the guys to the table for them on a contracting basis and do it X, Y, and Z by X, Y, and Z standards, and effectively provide them their same product that they do internally, but we can extend their reach.
Now, do
force multiplier basically on what
force multiplier? That's the great
exactly
word.
What
right.
They got 30 guys. I can bring 30 guys to the table. That just doubled their capacity to get it done. We can do that.
Now, do your people? They come from military backgrounds.
Not just military, but law enforcement as well.
Okay, right.
I
beg your pardon. Does that give them? I don't know how to describe it. I don't want any secret squirrel stuff. I don't have enough insurance for that. But let's just say, does that give you guys certain skills, certainly from your training, right, that you can transfer in the private sector?
Yeah.
But do you get like a better cell phone than I'm going to have? Do you get a better, wave detector? Do you get better access to better equipment than the average person could because of that background? I'm not talking about using stuff you're not supposed to use. I'm just saying you know where to find the high-end stuff.
So,
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it's not even just the high-end stuff. The most advanced technology. Give you an example. My background is I'm an EOD guy, an explosive ordnance disposal guy. We use sensors from time to time to detect radiation, chemicals,
right,
so on and so forth. Okay, especially with the way things have been going in the war on terrorism and where we've been for the last 15 years, where is the need for those products? The advancement, the generation of and the multiplying entity of getting the technology done and getting the technology out there to the troops. That war engine has been kicking for the last 15 years. So we get the best technology out there.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that, so you're saying
there's a
that
gap between when the military gets it, when the military uses it, and then
when it's transferred to the private sector.
Well, yeah, but you have to reconvert it to a different thing to then put it into the private sector.
Right. So do most of those things that come from military get converted? I know they get converted eventually. Are they getting converted quicker now? Are we finding things like that say, hey, I'm going to take this. Well, you mentioned the GoPro camera, right? That came from a military kind of idea.
Having a small camera like that, it's not necessarily that it was on an individual, but having a small camera like that was maybe on an individual, but definitely could have been utilized on an unmanned aerial aircraft.
Exactly right,
because there's very little weight to it, and yet the resolution.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So. This is what I'm getting at.
You know where to go find the stuff that you need to get the job done. That's
exactly.
Good way to describe it.
Yeah,
right.
we do.
Yeah.
We do. And if we, I'm aligned with a company that a good friend of mine that we served together. He started up a company that, they're an EOD and soft kit outfitter. They come up with all the kit that you wear, the holsters,
interesting.
The bags, the pouches,
the
and
bomb
so on.
tech.
So, yeah, well,
bomb tech
not
guys?
just bomb techs, but tools and stuff like that. They produce all these different things through R&D. So if we don't have it internally, we'll find it, and we'll get we get our clients the best prices for whatever's out there through wholesaling and so on and so forth. It's just, as I mentioned earlier, we don't. One person has all the answers. No one company has all the answers.
That's true.
So I've aligned my organization with other companies that bridge or augment the capabilities. That bridge the gap.
Where do we get that idea from? That I'm going to go find a single source provider for these things, because I think the mentality is still out there. I don't understand where that unless it comes from some old model that.
Okay, but so here's the thing: if McCoy, I'm sorry,
that's right.
My apology. If McCoy is the prime in the contract, let's use a private sector example. If McCoy is the prime in the contract, I could subcontract to Red Consultants, which is the UAS company, or Spartan 3, which is the cybersecurity company, or reach out to Patrick Bentley with ProTac Solutions and Design, so that way we can provide the kit that through the medical drop bags or whatever the case may be, whatever the client's looking for.
So you do become a single source that way.
We are, because we're effectively, McCoy is bringing services to the client, and we act as the broker for the other companies that we're in business with.
I think
services.
More importantly as a broker, because I was a buyer, right? So I bought a lot of services from a lot of people.
Understood.
I think my top budget was like $25 million or something. Here was my problem. I could find the widgets, I could find the gadgets, I could find the technology, the ideas, the strategies. It always fell down on the management, sustainable management. In other words, I would view your biggest resource to me would be that you're going to run this thing for me. And I'm going to check with you, and I'm going to give you my guidelines, and we're going to have some compliance modules that check these things and make sure it's working, right?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's logistics. And at the end of the day, the people that do that the best really are the military, frankly. I mean, you got to move 500,000 people in place. That takes a lot of moving parts to take care of. So I think that's a good model. Do you find any internal challenges on your side of it working with, let's say you had to bring 3 companies into a job here at the hotel for something, right? Mm-hmm. Do you find, what are your challenges in coordinating that part? Because now you got 3 subject matter experts that, really know what they're talking about, and maybe not be too concerned about your opinion in that area because they're the experts. You know what I mean? But you're the boss, obviously.
Right. So we open.
In other words, let's say you're bringing a guy for the drones. Mm-hmm. You're the single point of contact. As a manager, that's what I want. I don't want to talk to 5 people. Sorry, I'm too busy, right?
Understood.
But, would the drone guy talk to me or go through you?
The drone guy, as far as questions from the clients?
Exactly, right.
Okay, we would have to be the middleman in that capacity.
Makes sense.
Because, and when I say we would have to be the middleman.
McCoy.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is our director of aviation's programs is a medevac pilot from a military unit, so she understands the ins and outs of aviation and FAA regulations and so on and so forth much better than this ground pounder does. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've been walking everywhere, or riding in trucks or whatever. She would be the point of contact for anybody with Red Consultants that had questions if we have a client. But the way we've established, that's how one formula would work.
Right.
The way we've established the business development with these organizations is that it's an open door policy between myself and the owner of Red Consultants. It's an open door policy between myself and the owner of Spartan 3. And it's an open door policy between me and the owner of ProTac Solutions and Design. And those are just 3 companies that we've aligned ourselves with to do.
I think that's a good idea.
We have other companies that we do business with.
You prevent silos, and you prevent people from, trying to one-up you in front of the client. And those things happen in those kind of relationships sometimes,
Well, it does, but here's a great thing about it. All of us have worked for other, we'll use that term 800-pound gorilla again. all of us have worked for one company or another.
Yeah.
we've decided that after X number of years, and everybody's time frame is different, but after X number of years, we've decided now it's time for us to do it for ourselves. We've seen all the good things that have happened on those contracts where we were working for other companies. We've seen some things that we weren't happy with, so we're ultimately trying to change it.
Right.
And we're trying to mold it in a different direction, provide a different service. What the heck do they call it? Bedside manner. Our customer service and our bedside manner in dealing with a client is that 110th percentile, because the relationship that we build with the client isn't just a one-time service. We're looking to build relationships for 5 to 10 to 15 years.
It's all about the customer service.
Exactly.
If they don't trust you, I don't care how high-tech you are, they won't use you.
Right.
That's what it's about.
Right. So in our approach, we try to also give them the best cost possible, because budgets are getting decimated across the board.
Right.
Everybody's out of money as far as what's the first thing that goes, from an operational budget or a budget in general from a police department? Training. That's
Right.
the first thing that gets
Which
cut.
is crazy. It should be the last thing.
Exactly.
It's just ironic.
Exactly.
Let me shift hats for a second.
Sure.
What do you think, in your opinion, is A, our greatest threat to national security? And B, what do you think your business model is doing to address that?
So the greatest threat to this country at the moment is an internal threat of individuals that want to cause hate, discontent, and harm to the public.
Not necessarily terrorists, by the way. Could be.
Well,
but
okay,
could
but
be
then
some local yokel, right?
Right, but I'm going to lean on my experiences from what I've dealt with, and
Okay.
the tactics that I've seen the enemy use overseas, and it's the same. I mean, they're doing the same things here in the United
So
States.
you're saying that we're just going to say it. You're thinking these are the terrorist guys. I'm not talking about the idiot outside here protesting because they think they know everything about civil rights and all that kind of stuff. You're talking about the bad guys.
I'm talking about the guys that actually commit felonies by pulling a trigger on a civilian.
Okay, all right.
That type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that effectively is committing a felony.
Sure.
So that's, I think, the greatest threat to America at the moment is terrorism. The war on terrorism is not over. The war on terrorism isn't going to be over anytime soon. I hate to say it, because 9/11 was such a massive catastrophe in this country, but 6 months after it happened, a lot of people disengaged because it didn't affect the bubble that they live in.
That's true.
Or they didn't know anybody that was in the military that was getting deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq.
Right.
Or they didn't know anybody that lived in D.C. that now has some type of medical problem or whatever because of all the dust and so on and so forth. Or they didn't know anybody that was in the towers when they died. And actually, so here, let me compound the answer. Our greatest threat to this country is complacency. We are forgetting what has happened as a public.
Here's how I explain it to people. I say the greatest threat to our security is our security.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
effectively.
because if I can't operate my local model properly, and I got guards calling off, and people are sick, and I got lawsuits because you didn't give me my shoes that I asked you to, and you don't like me because of the way I look. And if you have all that internal crap going on within your security organizations, and by the way, we know this happens in police and fire because it's the nature of, in the military, we're just a bunch of type A sitting around. If we're bored, we got to do something, and we cause trouble sometimes, right? But having said that, I think on your point, it's the same thing. We've got to get our crap together.
Yes.
Internally.
Yes.
And watch these things.
Yes.
And if NSA needs 100,000 more employees, go hire 100,000 more employees. Stop building $65 billion bullet trains in California. I wonder how many people they could hire for Homeland Security with that $65 billion they're spending on the trains. See?
Right, but they got to change their approach.
I think
the people that are signing off on the bill to pass for a $65 billion bullet train are the same people that need to change their thought process to actually say public safety is more of a concern than 300-mile-an-hour transportation from point A to point B.
Yeah, and I think that is the issue. They don't get it, and that's my second biggest threat to me is the politicians. Politics is not governing. There's two different things. One's a noun, one's a verb, and politicians are not necessarily governors of things.
I understand.
I
have to legitimately. I have to. I guess maybe kind of watch what I say because
I don't. You can say what you can say what you want to say. I don't care.
We're looking. We'll be in the position looking for government contracts later on down the line. And
I love the government. The government's great. I beg your pardon.
So, but you asked, what's the greatest threat to America, and then how can we handle it?
Yeah.
I honestly believe that, especially since, let's take Texas for example. The National Guard was mobilized before the border because Texas felt that they had a massive border problem. Guess what? Texas did have a massive border problem. Texas still has a massive border problem. The point is that you're getting individuals at levels where they can make some difference, but ultimately the big difference is, as you mentioned, the ones that are elected, and the people that are over in D.C. need to collectively start focusing on
collectively, that's a good way to say it.
What is the most important solution in protecting the people of the United States?
Yeah, I think they, ironically, to my model, they worry about local because that's where they get elected. See, so they don't sit around as a group
to a certain degree.
Yeah, and
but they're all one chairman or another chairman on one committee or another committee.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is absolutely no reason why two different sides of the coin that run that entity in D.C. that run this country. What happens if all the employees of McDonald's say, "Well, we just can't get along, so we're not going to work today"? What happens to that McDonald's?
That's right.
The owner of that franchise. What happens to him?
That's right.
The only people that those guys are hurting, the men and women in D.C. when they say that we're in an impasse. Okay.
I don't believe in that.
Well. No, what it is you're refusing to compromise.
That's right.
You're refusing to get to the goal.
That's right.
Is what it boils down to. And that, I think, is absolutely unexcusable.
So what I've learned from your company today, I'm thinking...
Just one thing?
No, well,
I'm messing around.
Like the high concept would be that if these are our biggest threats, I see you guys coming in and being the managers of those strategies. In other words, you're offering strategies first, right, with tactics.
Yes. Because
you got to have the strategy. People always forget about the strategy. I got a drone. Okay, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to fly it around. I'm going to look at bad guys. Well, what if the ACLU wants to sue you? Well, I didn't think about that. Well, that's your strategy. You have to you have to foresee those.
What happens when you put that drone in a flight pattern for the FAA coming into Sunport Airport right here in Albuquerque?
Exactly.
Those are the things that you have to think outside. You have to take everything into consideration, not just one line of thought, and you can't have tunnel vision moving into it. No.
Give me something you're working on that's going to be kind of a wow. Anything, you don't tell me any names or anything. Was there something that's kind of like, top of the line kind of stuff you're working on?
Okay, so we'll get back. We could talk about, the border has been a hot topic for years now.
Yep.
Okay. The 4 border states, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, each governor has applied their own, they've either done something or haven't done anything. Right. Action or no action at all is still an action, and in their approach to solving illegals coming into this country. And I'm not going to identify any particular nationality group, because ultimately they're all illegal if they're not a citizen of the United States. If they don't have a U.S. passport when they're trying to enter this country, they're not supposed to be here.
That's right.
That's what it boils down to.
And a lot of terrorists are coming up through Mexico now.
Which is why I said the illegals, because it's not just a mixture of, the half of a percentile of the moms and the kids that want a better life coming across the border. It's the drug runners, it's the gun runners, it's the
problem.
It's the terrorists, it's the human trafficking that goes on in this country. People think human trafficking and they think, oh, that's horrible that thousands of women are, sold into slavery in parts of Africa and so on and so forth.
Here.
Hey, guess what? It happens right here.
It happens a lot in Los Angeles. It's a huge thing in Los
Angeles.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why it's called black market. Everything's for sale. Right. So it's the illegals. What it boils down to is that we have a product where we could assist. People say they want to fix the border. We have a product that provides that solution to fix the border.
Now, product, you mean a widget, or it's a combination of widgets,
No, it's
policies,
a
training?
combination.
Yeah.
It's a combination. It's effectively a training in an operational capacity, but I call it a product because
that is your product. You're right. That
we're
makes sense.
bringing it to the table for X, Y, and Z
Right.
municipality or whatever the case may be. But we have the solution. We can put into application the solution for the border.
So that's perfectly logical to me. To go to somebody from the military to say, I want you to build me a wall that keeps bad guys out.
Because if
you,
a wall. The
Well,
application's on a wall. But
okay,
I
well,
understand what you're saying.
let's say it's a concept to build
Yes.
me a
Conceptual wall.
defense mechanism
Yeah.
that keeps it right.
Got it.
Because if you don't do that well in the field and in the military, you got a problem with bad guys coming into your perimeter and killing everybody, right?
Right.
So I've always thought that there's a solution for that. I think, the green zone is green because they do something about it. They're not just saying, "Hey, you guys, no trespassing." Put a sign up, right? There's something they're doing or applying. I interviewed a guy from a company called Beta Fence, Clint Hilbert. Beta Fence is the oldest, biggest manufacturer of fences in the world. And I think they've been around. It started in Belgium, like in 18 something or other, right?
Right.
Experts in fences. And I asked him, if I said, I got a check, I want you to build a fence with all the bells and whistles on it from California to Texas. What's it going to cost me? Is it going to cost what? I forgot what they said. Congress keeps saying it's $100 billion, something ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, there's not even any way close to that's what it would cost, right?
Right.
That's the politics involved in it. So this is big. Is it a lot different than what people are presenting? Your solution, is it a lot different than what other people are presenting?
So the solution that we can bring to the table, if we put it into implementation right now, it will ebb the flow of illegals coming in over time. And it will assist for, say, whoever wants to actually go down that path and build a wall from California, south of San Diego, on the Pacific side, all the way to the Gulf side.
So with your application, we don't have to build the wall yet.
No.
But we'll certainly turn that faucet off. Slow it down.
Slow it down.
Slow it down, right.
I mean, you can't.
Which becomes a huge deterrent.
There is absolutely nothing out there unless, and I don't even want to talk on the show about what the deterrent system would be that would stop the flow instantaneously because, that's why they have international war crime tribunals and stuff. So, but I mean, what we could do with the application is we could effectively ebb the flow of last September, 50,000 people came across.
Right.
Estimates.
Right.
Okay. Well, this September coming up this year in 2016, the numbers could look like 20,000 instead of 50,000. That's 30,000 less.
Right.
We could ebb the flow.
Cost effectively too.
Yes,
Yeah,
extremely
that's the thing.
cost effectively. Utilizing infrastructure that's already there.
Well, that's another key, that people want to rebuild everything all the time. One way to save money is to use what you have. Understand
why
what you have.
the
by the
wheel?
way.
Why
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel?
People don't understand what they have. They don't understand that is an asset sitting over there. Let's use it somehow.
Correct.
So that's really important.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. What's the next big thing that you think is going to happen with world politics? What are the Chinese going to start floating their armada around, and are the Russians going to say, "Hey, America's weak"? And what's your thought on it?
Well, first,
Geopolitics.
First, China has already started floating their boats around. Second is Russia has said that we're weak.
I think one of them's going to get emboldened and take a move. I don't know.
Okay, but you got North Korea that just, they
Right.
supposedly, they've done a thermonuclear
Yeah,
test.
why don't we get the straight dope on that? Because I hear people say, "Oh, they did 3 tests." How do you know that? I read it here, and then other people say we have no confirmation. You get 2 different stories, like so far apart, it's unbelievable. Somebody must know. They don't want to scare the crap out of everybody, so they're not going to confirm it.
So somebody must know. You're absolutely right. I'm sure that there are entities within this government, within this country that do know. But again, people that approach their personal security in a proactive manner, they're the ones that are wondering what's exactly going on. People that don't care about their personal security and aren't being proactive about themselves, their locale or the timing, as you mentioned, those are the people that look at the newspaper headline and they just gaff it off. They brush it aside because it's not important to them. It doesn't affect their bubble.
Right.
It doesn't affect their bubble.
We just talked for an hour.
Good.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
We got 1 minute. Give us your website, email, anything you want, how we can get a hold of your company,
Okay, so
presence?
direct email is od@McCoy Solutions, mccoysolutions.us. Website is www.mccoysolutions.us. Phone number 505-410-0524 is a direct line to myself. And I've got subject matter experts in 12 different divisions. Not all the divisions are active, but we're open for business. We look forward to trying to help provide solutions in a consulting capacity to whoever needs assistance.
Beautiful. Fascinating discussion.
Thank you very much
Thanks
for
for
your
being
time.
on Security Guy
Appreciate
Radio.
it. Cheers.